Welcome back to Leadership Rules, where we believe leadership isn't just a role, it's a way of life. Whether you're leading a team, a community, or simply leading yourself, we're here to help you unlock the rules to lead your life with purpose and impact. I'm Nick Caniglio, joined by my co-host Marnie Stockman, and together we co-authored Lead It Like Lasso and The Business of You. And today we're thrilled to have Dr. Doan Winkel on the show.
Yeah, we are. So let me tell you a little bit about Doan Winkel. If you've seen his TED Talk, you already know he's not interested in doing things this is how it's always been done way. Doan is the endowed chair in entrepreneurship at John Carroll University, leads the Muldoon Center for Entrepreneurship, and helped launch the Donnelly School of Leadership and Social Innovation, which tells you a lot about what he cares about. He's all about experiential learning, leadership through action, and helping people stop waiting for permission to take ownership of their lives and work. So basically, he is right in our wheelhouse. So we are excited to dig into this one. Welcome to the party, Doan.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited for this. I had a good chat with Marnie a while back, so I've been excited for this for a while.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. All right. So we start with every guest with biscuits of the boss, since we are big Ted Lasso fans. So we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions, Doan. You ready for them?
I'm ready.
All right. First concert ever and the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert ever was Prince. First concert ever, I think, was Joan Baez. Maybe.
Okay.
So Prince, I feel like that's a big one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Dog or cat?
Oh, dog.
Paper, electronic, or audio versions of books?
I don't really read books, but if I had to, paper.
All right. Leadership, art or science?
Oh, geez. Art. You're killing me off the rip here. Art.
Did you go art? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so let's kind of get into this. So for our audience, for those folks who haven't come across you yet, give us the quick version. What do you do, and really, what are you most fired up about right now?
Yeah, so generally, the way I describe it, Marnie was kind enough to list a bunch of titles, but I basically lead the entrepreneurship program at John Carroll University. It's a Jesuit school here in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I do that. And then I also have a kind of side hustle where I do a lot of consulting, AI consulting with teachers and educational leaders around how to really effectively and responsibly use AI in the teaching world. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about now is trying to bring in more of a mastery learning approach into college instead of the way I assume the three of us went through our experiences, which personally for me were just painful and miserable.
Yeah. That's interesting because I know you've had the conversation with Marnie, and my introduction to you was your TEDx talk, and in that talk, you alluded to the fact that your purpose in life is to tear down and rebuild our broken education system. You talked a little bit about that as you just described your work.
Yeah.
What progress are you most proud of in that? That was 12 years ago, right? and what still needs to break?
Almost everything. So not a lot of progress in the last 12 years, not for lack of trying, at least and I live in higher ed, so I don't play in the K through 12 space really, but there's just so much inertia that it's really, really, really difficult to effectuate any kind of large scale change. So I look at it more on a person level, and my students, and the kinds of experiences they're having and the kinds of things that they end up doing after their time with us and that kind of thing. So I've seen, in my 15 years doing this or so, just the way that I've been doing my work and the impact I've been able to have on my students, I've seen a greater impact on a greater number of students. And I think just with colleagues across the board, the same, but institutionalized in the education system as a whole, very little progress. It is not an easy beast to slay, so to speak.
Nick and I have both worked for startups as well as large organizations, and the bureaucracy and, like you said, inertia in the large ones. I can remember it's like I'm trying to steer a battleship, but I'm trying to push it with me standing on the ground and the battleship's in the ocean, right? Like just isn't effective as possible. I'm swimming trying to push the thing. So,
Right.
which is interesting because the question I wanted to ask was about ownership, because you spend time pushing people like to take ownership earlier than they think they have permission to or they're allowed to. So why do you think, what holds people back? What's keeping them waiting for permission in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's the school system and parenting. Um, so, school system, at least in the U.S., typical school systems, they just teach you to wait, right? Somebody's telling you what, where, when, why, who, all that stuff. So you're just trained to wait for somebody to give you the instructions and permission and all that. And I think my generation, myself included, I got a 20-year-old, so I'm guilty as everybody, but I think we've been doing too much for our kids. And so they've just learned to wait. Like mom and dad will tell me what to do or take me, to do whatever I need. Whereas the way I grew up was, come home and the lights come on. Who knows what you're doing? Hopefully you come home in all one piece. So I really think it's just if you think about the systems young people are in, it's home and school. And in both of those systems, the people leading those systems are training the young people to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think along those lines, I think the school systems today, especially K through 12, there's such a focus on just a checklist being finished and not a lot of focus on being ready. Marnie and I always say finished does not equal ready, right?
Yeah.
And along those lines, society, we put a lot of weight on degrees, titles, resumes. But from your perspective, and you've alluded to this a little bit, what actually shapes a leader more than any checklist item or credential ever could?
Yeah, I think that mainly experience, right? So having experience, but being able to sort of turn that experience into some sort of action, be able to share that experience. Mm-hmm. I think failing has a huge part to play in, how sort of legitimate a leader can be, and if people are going to line up behind them, and how authentic people can be in sharing their experiences. And I think curiosity is a huge one. I think people are attracted to other people who are curious, and engage with people who are curious. And so if, in my world, I step into a classroom, I'm supposed to be the guy. I'm supposed to be the expert. I'm supposed to know everything. People are waiting for me, and I think if we take that role on as leaders to say, I'm it, people don't, and especially young people today, like they don't want any part of that. So they want somebody who's curious, who's going to be a little vulnerable, and who's going to share, why are we learning this? Why do I want you to do this thing? And it comes from the experience I've had or learned vicariously through someone else.
Yeah, it's interesting because we work with a lot of students in helping them tell their own story, which they are simply terrible at doing. Yeah. Part of which is because they're not willing to talk about failure as how it has helped them grow, but really critically important, right? Because so much happens, so much learning happens when things don't work out the way you expected them to, right? So how do people learn in public, right? Experiment in public, learn in public, get those experiences without letting that failure mess with their confidence? Because that's really what they feel like they're losing when they think they're going to fail, right? Is their confidence.
Yeah, I actually had this conversation with a young woman, a student of mine yesterday, and she's terrified. I said, just start sharing on LinkedIn. Like, what are you scared of? What are you trying? What do you think's missing? Right? She's trying to get ready for a career and all this kind of thing. She's terrified of it, and I just said, what you're going to find is when you start sharing that and you start being a little vulnerable, people like it, and people want to support you, and people want to share their experience that's similar, and they want to help. And I said, sure, you're going to get some mean people along the way. That's just a fact of life. But that's their problem, not yours. They're the ones that had the issue, and I think once I see it all the time, with young people, when they start sharing and they start kind of putting themselves out there, they see people want to support them, and I go, look, there's so many people who've been exactly where you are and would love to give back. They don't know you, they can't find you, but once you
can't guess.
Yeah, they want to weigh in and they want to help, and maybe it's good advice and bad advice, maybe it's good connections and bad connections, but they step up to help, and then you feel good and you see, oh, this kind
of working.
This is cool and it's working. I'm going to do more of it. So it just becomes a kind of stone that's rolling downhill.
Well, and the reality of it is, with the algorithms as they are, if it's a terrible post, ones of people will see it.
Well, that's the other thing I told her, right? I go, look, no offense here, but you don't have many people looking at you. So, it's not like gazillions of people are going to see this thing, but you start and you start small. And before you know it, you got a lot of eyeballs on you, which may be scary, but the eyeballs are there because they're curious and they want to know what you're up to and they want to help you. And I think for the most part, that's just a human thing, right? And like I told him, I go, if people are not being kind to you, that's their problem, right? Don't take that on.
Yeah. Which is a struggle for many kids, as you said.
100%. And I don't know what it's like to be a 19-year-old woman. I got no clue, right? I think that's a different experience than a 51-year-old dude, but you got to try.
So, Doan, one of the things Marnie and I talk a lot about is when someone stops treating their career like something that's just kind of happening to them and starts treating it like something they could actually design. What's that shift look like? And I'm going to go back 12 years ago to your TED Talk again. So you're going to have to pull back. And you talked a lot about in your classroom when you work with students that you give them control of the classroom and that there were problems, that ultimately would arise from that, but you had to work through that problem. But can you talk a little bit about empowering students to actually design where they go in life as opposed to just reacting to what's happening to them, and in your experience in working with students with that?
Yeah, it's a fight because, again, a lot of parents, a lot of school systems have taught them the opposite, that, they're not in charge. And so it's a bit of a fight to really get them comfortable doing that. But, once they take small steps, and I think that's part of it, is what are some of these little small steps they can take? And once they start doing that, it gains this momentum and they start seeing that, people are responding positively to it. They see action happening. They see conversations happening. They meet people they wouldn't normally otherwise have met. They're getting good advice from people who do the things that they think they want to do in their career. And a lot of it is just them sort of being authentic. That's the other thing, is I tell them, nobody wants polish anymore. Stop with the polish nonsense. Just be you. You don't have to show up with the beer poster in the background and the bong on the table. Don't do that. Don't, you don't have to have this polish. Just be you, right? And people respond to that and they want to support it and they want to give feedback. So it's really about these small steps, and I think with young people, especially college age, they're thinking big, right? What do I want to do for my career?
Yeah. It's overwhelming.
It is. It's 100%. And I can't remember what it's like at that age. That was a while back, but it's hugely overwhelming. And that's where I'm who cares where you're going to be in 5 years? I don't what do you like doing? Let's figure out how to get you doing more of that kind of stuff you like doing, and just start small, take some small steps, try some things out, talk to people who do that thing to see if, I tell them all the time, ask them, what's a typical Tuesday like for you doing that job? And if that sounds cool to you, keep going. And if you're just no, I don't know.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, right. Then don't do that. So it's little things like that, that I think people tend to get real overwhelmed. And so it's really just breaking it down to these small steps and just trying things, not being scared of putting yourself out there.
Also, the authenticity piece. Mm-hmm. I know there's research out there that says self-awareness is one of the primary indicators of leadership success. And so you can't really be authentic if you don't know who the authentic version of you is, right? If you don't know what your core values are. And so many times students are following friends, right? They're just kind of plodding their way through the path that other people have put in front of them without taking the time to think, is this what I love doing? I think it's critically important. And we always say you have to lead yourself first before you can lead others. And in that realm, a lot of students, especially right out of college, aren't going to have leader in their title, right? That's just not the way that comes along. But what does real leadership look like when you don't have the authority or the title that backs you up?
Yeah. So they struggle with that. I see a lot of struggles with that. I tell them, show up, do the things that you say you're going to do. Take advantage of opportunities, show up to things, volunteer to be on the culture committee or, whatever, right? Like get involved, show up, get involved in things, that kind of thing. And then start to think about, whatever somebody's role is at a company or whatever, like they're engaging with lots of different people, whether they're in the same function or different functions, and there's more senior ones and there's less senior ones and peers and all that. But it's like, how do you help others be in a place where they're better off than what they thought they were, right? So just trying to get to know people and building relationships, and then trying to see, are there ways I can help that person be sort of a better version of themselves? Or are there ways I can help that person, take a step forward towards something they want to do? It doesn't have to be work, right? This person must learn how to make stained glass windows, whatever. Cool. Yeah. Encourage them to try that.
To do that. Yeah.
And share some resources with them that you looked into or whatever, and just care about people.
So this makes me laugh because I'm thinking of the day the head of student services came and put a sticky note on my computer that said, "See me." And I've never been called to the principal's office in my life, but seeing a "see me" note scares the stuffing out of this firstborn child. And student services in the school system, K-12, is no place anyone wants to go. If a kid's going to have to call a cop, that's where it's coming from. So I walk into her office and I said, I sure hope this is a knitting question, because otherwise I don't know what I'm doing in here, because I had owned a knitting shop. And she said, "Oh, it is a knitting question." I was like, "You should make note of that on your sticky notes,
right? You got to put a PS on the note.
Yeah. But to your point, I have good connections with folks sometimes because they need knitting help along the way. But I also know that I could call her for other things, and it creates a bond. To your point, not just finding ways to help them, but it also helps build a relationship so that when they have a need, right, it's a give and take on that, and hopefully more giving. We always know it. We're big fans of Bob Berg's book, The Go-Giver. We know the more giving, right, the more you receive in return. So yeah.
I try to tell people it doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, it does not.
No offense to people who write books, right? But there are so many books. There's so much information, and people drown in information.
Oh, right? Analysis paralysis. Yeah,
and it's it doesn't have to be complicated. Take a step back, think about what it means to be a good person, and do more of that, right? Have a little courage, be a good person, put yourself out there, and guess what? Good things will happen.
Sage advice right there, right to the point. No, I mean, I think that's spot on. So Marnie talks about sticky notes. I want to talk about AI. So I'm going to go on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And Doan, you mentioned a little bit very briefly about your work with AI, but everybody knows AI, it's moving so fast right now, right? And it feels like rules and every systems are changing daily or weekly. So my question to you is, somebody's trying to stay relevant, whether they're a student, a leader, just any human with a job. What actually matters most in this age of AI? And you can take this anywhere you want to take it.
How much time you got?
Yeah. In the next 8 hours, please summarize your thoughts on AI.
Right. I think it goes back to, not to be a broken record, but I think it goes back to sort of curiosity, right? I think, I don't care what position you're in, you can't put your head in the sand, you can't ignore things, trying, but you also can't keep up. And so I think, either one of those two extremes, you're going to be in big trouble, right? And so I think just kind of understanding, here are the things I do. here are the things that mean something to me. So I do this with teachers. When I work with teachers, I go, just make a list. What are the low value tasks you do? And what are the high value tasks you do? Right. And as a teacher, we do very similar tasks, but each of us have different ideas of where our value is. Right. So for each individually, like what's low value, what's high value? The low value stuff, you can offload a lot of that work onto some sort of AI, right? You shouldn't offload it all, but you can certainly offload a lot of that. And then what that means is you get to spend a lot more time on what you perceive are the high value tasks for you, right? And when you're thinking about, okay, here's some things I want to try to like offload some of this work onto AI and bring AI into my mix. If you have a couple things, then it becomes easier to go, okay, how do I find a tool or a platform that helps me do this one thing? And then I can get really good at that. And, lo and behold, for most of us, it's simple stuff. This is not like complicated stuff, right? And so something like a ChatGPT or a Gemini or Claude or whatever, like that's going to take care of the vast majority of a lot of the simple stuff we do. Yeah. And so that's that part of like just trying to keep it really simple and not get overwhelmed. Sure, there's shiny bells and whistles and there's 32 things that pop up new every day. You can't keep up. So like, don't try. Just figure out, these are the tasks I want help with. These are the kind of tools that are going to help me do those tasks. So I don't have to spend as much time on them, and I can spend more time over here doing the stuff that's meaningful to me. And then you're good. And you're learning, by the way, how to use these things. And then that becomes transferable to other kinds of tasks you want to do.
So is there something in Doan's world right now that you could easily bring up that says, yeah, I've started using AI to do X, Y, or Z, really low value tasks that you can give us an example on?
Yeah. So this is very controversial for a lot of teachers. I hate giving feedback. I don't like it. And so I use ChatGPT and I build some things in ChatGPT to help me give feedback. So I take a real quick pass, let it take a quick pass. I put those two things together and get it back to students. They get way more robust feedback. They get it super quick so they can iterate, right? Because my whole thing is if you turn in an assignment, you should have the opportunity to learn, fix it, change it, turn it back in, get a better grade, etc. So that's the big thing I'm playing around with now is a good system to make that where it's fair, it's reasonable, it's not too AI, that kind of thing. And then the other one I've been playing around with is there's a asynchronous course I teach, and so doing a lot with like AI avatars of me making videos, that they can watch, so I don't have to record it 47 times.
Yeah. We know that feeling.
Yeah.
So this podcast is called Leadership Rules. So what is one leadership rule that you feel like everybody, like that you live by or that everybody should live by?
Learn to say no a lot more often. Especially younger generations. They've been taught by my generation, our generation maybe, they've been taught to say yes to a lot of things and do everything they can do and soak it all up. And that's horrendously bad advice. And so I think if a leader learns to say no to more things that don't really move them forward or don't really have impact on what they're trying to do, then they get to spend more time on the things that create real impact. And so people don't like to hear no a lot, but if I can say that and stay focused on what matters and other people can see me doing that and I can model that, then I think my team gets more comfortable with saying no, including to me, which I think is a good thing.
Love that. Yeah. It just made me think the 2 no's of a leader. That's maybe the next book, Marnie, like say no a lot and be able to say, I don't know the answer to that. So no and KNOW. Yes.
I like it.
Brilliant. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I mean, and the humility, right? Yeah, obviously, there's all this about curiosity and authenticity, and and just the humility, right? All of that. Again, it goes back to just that being a good person, right? I mean, there's times where you need to be in charge, and you need the ego, and you need to be the one, and then there's times where just shut up and just be humble and a good person and a kind person, and so yeah, I like that.
As do we. So, so if people are listening and thinking, hey, I want more of this, or they want to find out more of what you do, Doan, what's the best way for them to follow your work or connect with you?
Yeah, mostly on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there, and then I just started up a Substack newsletter. It's called How to Teach with AI, so it's very focused on resources, prompts, frameworks, things specifically for teachers and more college and high school level teachers on how to bring AI into their teaching role. So mostly those two are going to be the best places to find me.
Oh, I got a posse of friends on Facebook that are high school teachers that will love to hear that.
Yeah. I was on Facebook. I can't take it anymore. So I left.
Well, they can go to Substack. You don't have to come to them on this one. I'll just put it out there, and they can come to you.
There's a lot of nonsense on other platforms I found, and I was like, I'm just going to stick on LinkedIn and Substack because they're nice people
and well-trained bots that keep the other nonsense off.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us.
No, it's been fun. I appreciate you having me.
Okay. Take care.
Yes.